Good evening, and a good evening, and welcome back to the One Celtic Fans View this evening with myself, Baz. Welcome back to the channel. There's big news tonight. Big news. It doesn't directly involve Celtic, the first bit of news, but it is. There is big news regarding an ex-Celtic manager, Ange Postecoglou. Ange Postecoglou is expected to leave Spurs at the end of the season. He is expected to leave Spurs even if he wins the Europa Cup with Spurs and gets them automatically qualified for the Champions League next season. He is still going to leave Spurs this summer. Well. He only went there for the money. Let's face it. He only went there for the money. He was getting paid £7 million a season. And we wish Ange well in whatever he does next. Because I think he'll not be shy of a few bob or two after his $6 million that he earned at Celtic. And then, but anyway, it is what it is. It's just money to these guys, isn't it? So, with that being said, we have a fantastic manager. It'll be interesting to get some of the accounts. This only broke about 40 minutes ago. News done about Ange. Yes, it did. It only broke about 40 minutes ago. When I put the thumbnail up, the news only broke this evening. It's wicked news. And it just shows you, as good as what Ange Postecoglou was for Celtic, he's not been able to recreate what he did at Celtic down in England. Now you could say that DJ Singy's in the house. It's good. I was running late because I was booking flights to come home. So yeah, I almost missed the 9 o'clock starting. But yeah, Ange Postecoglou leaving Spurs at the end of the season. He signed up for a 2-year deal at a time where Celtic wanted him to sign up for a further 2 years at Celtic. Could have Ange have taken Celtic any further what Brendan Rodgers has done this season in the Champions League? And I'm not too sure that he could have. He's done, I mean, people say, look, he's managed to get to the semi. But never mind. It's Ange. And yeah, the dimensional Ange got found out in the Premier League. Yeah, he did that. But anyway, we move on from that. There's also news regarding Stoke City player Miljan Manhoef. Stoke are sitting currently 17th in the league that they're in, the Championship. Leeds United and Burnley are battling it out for automatic qualification in the English Premier League, but Stoke City, with them struggling down at the bottom half of the league and having had a player for a couple of seasons now, they may look to cash in, and it's looking like they may do. There is chat going around this evening that Stoke City would be looking between £7 and £10 million package for the player. Now, it could be the fact that they sell him to Celtic for a fee and a sell-on fee. I've got Bobo Glint to win this, so bugger Ange. Oh Jesus! Actually, just 2 seconds. I'm just checking something else. No, it's not fine. It's fine. I was just double checking something. I thought there was another bit of news coming through. But Stoke paid £3 million for the player. They're looking to sell him on at a profit. I reckon Celtic, the fact that he's got 2 years left on his contract, I reckon Celtic will get the winger for around about £6 million. I reckon if they go in with an offer. But you know what Celtic are like. They're going to go in with $1 million, about 4.5 million or something stupid, and say, well, there's £1.5 million profit on the player. He is a player that Stoke think is very good. He sometimes gets a little bit greedy, some of them have said, on some of the podcasts that I watched this evening, just to get a bit of background about about the player. He is one that they rate quite highly, and Celtic have, well, they've not acknowledged, but don't even start that nonsense tonight. But anyway, the fact that Celtic will be looking for a winger with Louis Palma leaving the building. Louis Palma will be looking to move on this. Well, he's got an option to buy in Greece, but the Greeks don't want him, so he's going to be looking elsewhere. And then there's the Nico Kuhn question. There is the big Nico Kuhn question. Will Nico Kuhn be at Celtic after the summer? Has his head been turned? Anyway, Pat Bonner talking about Arne Engels in midfield, saying that Arne Engels, Rio Hatate and Callum McGregor have been the mainstay of the midfield. What part does Paulo Bernardo play? And he's also been speaking about the replacement for Callum McGregor, and it's something that we've spoke about quite a lot on this channel recently. And he wonders if Paulo Bernardo is the man. Do you think that Paulo Bernardo is the man to take over the midfield, to turn into the midfield maestro or Portuguese man? 4 million plus Greg Taylor. I don't think Greg Taylor's going to sign a contract either. When you look back to what the manager said a couple of weeks ago, when you look at what the manager said a couple of weeks ago, he says that, look, the Greg Taylor situation, he's been down this road before, and it's generally the case that the player goes at the end of the season. If they've not signed the deal by now, they're generally not going to sign the deal at all. The fake news that was going around about Taylor having signed a deal or being in the process of signing the deal with Celtic was basically knocked back by Brendan. He said, look, I got told about the headlines. I know nothing of it. It's not enough. It's nothing. It's news to me if he is. And then Celtic didn't allow Greg Taylor, even though he got man of the match. Even though he did get man of the match, they didn't put him in front of the TV cameras. He must be the first player that's won man of the match. I wonder how many man of the match awards, especially when Celtic games are on TV. I wonder how many man of the match awards that Greg Taylor will get between now and the end of the season, as the media try and get any kind of word and any kind of snippet, because you know the first question will be is, where are you going next summer? It'll be, congratulations, you've done absolutely fantastic today, and then the next question will be, where are you going in the summer? Are you signing a new deal with Celtic? And Celtic don't want to put that pressure on him. Maybe there is still some chat going on in the background. Stoke are 17th in the league. 17th in the league. They're only 7 points clear of the relegation. I would say they're almost safe, but it's really close. You've got, in the Championship, you've got Plymouth, Argyle on 43 points, you've got Cardiff on 43, you've got Luton Town on 46, you've got Derby County on 46, you've got Hull City on 48, Oxford United on 49, Preston 49, and then Stoke City on 50. So they could still get dragged down into the playoff positions at the bottom of that. So even if they were to get relegated, you could see them cashing in on the player, even more so if they were to get relegated. So we'll watch that one as it props up during the summer, but it is one that it's got a bit of meat about it now. I've not been wanting to, I mentioned that about a week or so ago, the fact that I've been looking at a Stoke player, but it's just one of these ones that keeps sizzling away. It is one of these ones that keeps sizzling away, so it makes you think that there could actually be some meat to the bone of this transfer story coming out of Stoke, and the fact that he has only got 2 years left. You never know. That could change the asking price. I think if they were to get relegated, you're then talking about £4 million for the player. You're not going to get them. You're not going to get them any cheaper. But if they were to get put into a relegation battle in the next couple of weeks, it'll be one to watch, because you've got to remember, Celtic were also after a Spanish winger at the last transfer window. They were after a Spanish winger. Was it Raul? And he got injured in the last window. You remember that one? He got injured right at the beginning of the window. When is the Trongate party? Is it on the 17th? Dave Morton. In fact, I'll message you on Facebook, Dave. I'll message you on Facebook. Of course there'll be one. There'll definitely be one. There'll be one on the last day of the season. Definitely be last day of the season. Or is it usually after the Scottish Cup final? But then if you lose the final, there'll definitely be one. It's the 55th league title. It's the 55th league title. There's bound to be one. 17th of May. For a quick what? I'm just reading some of the comments. Ange getting the Japan national job would be good news for Atati and Maida. I don't think that's going to happen, is it? I don't think that is Japan looking for a new manager. I don't think that they'd be looking for a new manager. I don't think they would go down the Ange Postecoglou route. But then you never know. You never know. So what do you think about Pat Bonner saying that Paulo Bernardo isn't the guy to step up for Callum McGregor, even though Bernardo is younger and he's still got some few years in him to progress? I mean, is Paulo Bernardo the type of player that can progress into a Bruni type player at Celtic? I'm not too sure. I mean, he's 23, Paulo. He is 23-year-old. Can he become... He's the Portuguese captain. He is the Portuguese captain. So there's a bit of me thinking, he can play that midfield role quite well. And I think he's been unlucky with injuries. I do think he's been unlucky with injuries this season. If we get the points on Saturday, will Parkhead be open for the fans to celebrate? I have no idea. Peter. I doubt it. Paulo Bernardo's been injured, He's been injured. Baz, pass that into the hand of God. Kaiser wants to join you. He's getting pegged. No idea what that is. Has Ange stolen Bernardo's limelight slightly with his fee? I think that the two of them... These are sick. I think that Arne Engels, because he's been the fitter person this season and Bernardo's been out for such a long time now, I think that they're two different types of players. And I mean, why did Celtic bring in Paulo Bernardo before Arne Engels? They knew that they must have a plan for Paulo Bernardo, and is it to take over from Callum McGregor? I don't think so. I don't think Paulo Bernardo would stick around at Celtic that long. When you're talking about potential captain material, but then again, the next captain of Celtic will not be a centre or midfield player, that's for sure. Bernardo's another season for me. We need to replace Adam Eder, though. We need a quality striker for the Champions League. Will we go back to Brøndby? Will we go back to Brøndby for their player? That's going to be a one to watch. It depends what they do with his valuation. There was a story came out that his valuation, that come this summer, there was a release clause of around about between 8 and 10 million, and that's the big reason that Celtic held off, because they were wanting 14 million to release him at that transfer window. So it'll be interesting to see Could be an undercover agent. It'll be some nut job that's always the same. William I scouted years ago. He became a decent side. Chelsea at the time. There you go. I mean, the young lad Manhoef what can he bring to Celtic that we don't already have? If you're going to play Dyson Maeda through the middle, you've got Jota on one side, Manhoef on the other. What does it say really for the future of Nico Kuhn? That's where the big question mark is. Yang looks like he's coming on to a game also. He's unfortunate that he's out injured. I mean, is Brendan Rodgers setting up Celtic for next season to have two fantastic players in every single position? I mean, we've got it just now to a certain extent, but sometimes the player that comes in is nowhere near as good as the player that's got the shirt already. Can Yang turn his game into the one where he was getting his Nat King Cole for his missus? I was Philip Clement a few weeks ago. Oh, jeez, I give up. I do give up. You're making me talk. I'm reading the comments and I'm losing it. Yeah, so Paulo Bernardo. Can Paulo Bernardo take over from Callum McGregor in the long term? And then if it happens and we go for Lennon Miller, what happens to the dynamics of the midfield then? Because Lennon Miller's going to want to come into that midfield and play in one of those positions. Is it going to be the position that Callum plays in? Are Celtic going to... When you look at the fact that Callum McGregor retired from international football this year, and Scott Brown did about the same at the same age as what Callum is now, and it extended Scott Brown's career at Celtic for a good few years. And I think that we got longer out of Scott Brown than what we would have if he'd stayed playing for Scotland at a higher level, for international level. Because of that in the Champions League games would have just knackered them out, and I think it was good for Scott Brown. If it was good enough for Scott Brown, will it have been good enough for Callum McGregor to see out the next 3 years? He is contracted until 2028. I can't see Callum renewing a new contract at Celtic after 2028. Especially the way that when he gets to the end of the season, Callum McGregor has got this reoccurring injury on his calves. That's 2 seasons in a row that he's had that. Celtic really need to get the finger out and get the long-term replacement in for Callum in that holding midfield role. And for anyone who says that Jeffrey Sloop is the answer, no, he's not. I can't see. Jeffrey Sloop played in their one game and he was a nightmare, wasn't he? I can't see that happening at all. Regardless of who comes into Celtic, we have enough to dominate the domestic scene, but we'll never have the quality to make a major impact in the Champions League, says Smudger. I don't think that when you look at what Ange Postecoglou has just done at Tottenham, he's got that Tottenham side who are rank rotten in the league. And I think they're sitting 17th or so. I'm not sure where they're sitting, but they're sitting way down the league. And when you look and see what he's done with Tottenham, what was missing with Ange in the Champions League is he was too one-dimensional. And I've never watched any of the Spurs games in the Europa. I don't know if he's changed his formation. I don't know if Brendan Rodgers sees a change of formation next season. I think he does. I think Brendan Rodgers is going to have a trick up his sleeve because he saw the way that teams go to the low block, and then some teams will try and thingy out the midfield. Other teams will man mark Callum McGregor. We saw that happening many times over the season, and try and get him out the game. So Brendan has to come up with something new next season. We can't go into next season with the same kind of tactics, the same style of football, because people will start catching on. They caught on the last time. People were starting to catch on to Ange Postecoglou in his second season. So anyway, McCowan is more of our future. Do you think so? I'm not too sure that Luke McCowan is that midfield general. I just don't see it in him. He's a fantastic player, but I don't see him. I don't see him dominating the midfield the way that Callum does. And plus, he's a bit older. Spurs can't defend a keeper as a donkey. Oh, Jesus. Bobo Lint will beat Ange again. Yeah, they will. But anyway, who cares? It was a bit of breaking news, the fact that it has broken tonight that Ange Postecoglou is expected to leave Spurs, even if they do. Danny Cassie says, must believe in the boys. I think that we need to get rid of Taylor. He's terrible. And he's a wee hun as well. Danny Cassie walks into the room, opens up a grenade and just throws it into the chat. There we go. Come on, Celtic, having enough a bag of beers in Cowabunga. I've had enough bag of beers in Cowabunga, Celtic. I mean, who would you bring in as Celtic? We're not even going to go down that road. Let's get to the end of the season and celebrate having the 55th title and hopefully having a treble in the bag also before we start talking about the team adapting and evolving. Brendan Rodgers has already said that he's going to be here next season. Whether or not he stays after his 3 years is a lot to be said. Danny McGrain was a current so what to the Tay Hunters. And Danny McGrain was at Celtic all his career. Danny McGrain was in the backroom staff with Celtic for a long time, even under Brendan Rodgers as manager. We've played some fantastic football this year. We have done, but there's also been times, and Brendan Rodgers, do you agree with this? Right, there's the poll question for tonight. Do you agree with what Brendan Rodgers said? Do you agree that the lack of pressure is hurting the way that we play? There we go. Like Brendan Rodgers basically said that the lack of any real pressure from another club inside the SPFL on the second half of the season. The first half of the season, Aberdeen run us right up until Christmas. They run us right up until Christmas. Brendan Rodgers says that the lack of any intensity, the lack of the chase, the fact that there is such a gap has affected this team. Do you think that the lack of any pressure from another team is hurting the way that Celtic play? Do you think that this group of players, the second half of the season, this is a good chatting point actually, do you think that the lack of pressure from another team, or the fact that the gap is so big, that some of these players have kind of switched off a bit? They believe that they're just going to walk through games and the pressure isn't there because there's nobody. They know if they lose, it's not going to be a disaster. They're still going to win the league. And is that a cockiness from this Celtic team? That they know that they're going to win the league? Ultimately, they're going to win the league. They know that if they don't play well, they still think that they can win. Is that a cockiness, or is it just lazy for some of the players going into the second half of the season? And maybe that's why Brendan Rodgers wants to set them all personal targets. And I think that the targets will be running targets, it'll be shots on goal targets, it'll be whatever. But it'll be interesting to see what Stephen Johnson says. Baz, let me get that for it. Baz, did you know that if we win the cup, we will be world record breakers with 9 trebles? Yes, I did, Stephen. That's why I've already got the thumbnail set up for it. Not touching. It's just that's all I'm saying. Mateus scored a couple for Brøndby yesterday, puts him on 17 goals in 28 games. Do you think that Mateus, we'll come back to that in a minute, Kaiser says the lack of domestic competition is hurting Brendan Rodgers' ability to prize more money at the board and allows players to take their foot off the gas. Very poor January window with no fresh challenges. Kaiser, you're spot on. You're spot on there, mate. Brendan Rodgers took the easy option, or was it the board took the easy option? I mean, they sold Kyogo. They've been working with Brøndby in the background over a number of years now, trying to get this player from him, and he just didn't do enough to get it over the line. But that's twice, the last 2 windows. Right, the summer. Now we're at the end of the season, we can start talking transfer talk again. The fact that we went into the summer window and we were very, very lackadaisical about the way that we approached the transfer window. And Brendan Rodgers said it at the end of the transfer window. He said when we were in America, he said that he was asked about bringing in players, and he said you need to speak to Nicholson and Chris Mackay. You could tell that he was pissed off with those two then. I saw Peter Lawwell sitting at Hampden with Nicholson. And I'm going to be honest, when I saw Lawwell sitting at Hampden with Nicholson and the two of them didn't have a smile on their puss, it puts the fear into me. It puts the fear into me because Lawwell doesn't like spending money. Lawwell would rather sit with the 100 million in the bank and tell Brendan to get on with his job. And I think that the way that Brendan Rodgers pinpointed them in the summer, this is going to be an interesting window. This summer is going to be one of the most watched transfer windows by fans in a long time, because it will give you an indication whether Brendan Rodgers is going to stay over his last year. If he signs a deal before then, it will be a short-term deal. I think he'll sign for another year maximum. I can't see Brendan Rodgers signing an extension to his current deal for any more than a 1 year extension, and I don't think that the board would want to give him that. I know that our owner would give him it all day long. Our owner would give him a job for the next 6 years until we win 10 in a row. But when it comes to Lawwell, I don't trust him. I've never trusted him when it comes to the way that he works at Celtic. And seeing him at Hampden before kick-off, him and Nicholson sitting, and you couldn't fucking get a smile at them if you tried. The fact that Nicholson is so close to Lawwell. He's Lawwell's right-hand man, and he has been for years. And I think that if Brendan doesn't get the players that he wants this summer, he'll be off at the end of his contract. And then we're basically back to square one with a little bit of extra money in it. And maybe that's why the board aren't pushing things, because they're waiting to see if Brendan Rodgers is going to be here. And maybe they're just holding money back. I don't know. It's not time to start speculation about that anyway. I mean, we're going to have a whole summer to speculate about that, because it's going to be an ongoing thing unless Celtic come out before the end of the season. And Celtic will say, look, there's no rush, so he's still got a year on his contract left. The same happened to Ange. He gets to the end of his contract, and Ange tells the boards at Hampden before a game that he's not signing a new contract with Celtic. He wants to go and talk to Spurs. So it's that old Hampden hoodoo. And I've never forgiven Lawwell after giving fucking Lennon the job in the showers. Get me started on that. That was the worst bus trip home after that. So the board overpaid Ida. Fans have a go, but that's what Rodgers wanted. No win for the board. I don't think that the board are getting people are having a go at them for overpaying for Adam either. I think it's more the fact that it took so long for the deal to get done. Let's not mix up overpaying for a player and taking far too long to get him. We all know what happened at the start of the season. Kyogo Furiashi goes down holding his shoulder. We've been in talks with Norwich, who are rank rotten just now, and karma to them. As soon as Kyogo goes down, and it looks like he might be out for a couple of weeks, the board get the checkbook out like that the very next day and sign Adam Ida. And Brendan Rodgers sarcastically said at the time, it's amazing how quick that deal got done. Never seen that one coming, did I? Brendan Rodgers and the board are not a match made in heaven. That's all I'm going to say. When you listen to what he's said over the course of the season, he's always deflected things away from himself and said, look, you need to ask the board about that. You need to ask them. Those are the guys with the money, and those are the ones that get the deals done. Same with the Greg Taylor scenario. I want to keep Greg Taylor. This is telling me where there's a split. There still is the split between what Brendan Rodgers wants and what the board are prepared to pay a player. And I think that in this day and age, I think that we're all romantics, and we all think that the manager runs the club and the manager decides what a player's worth. A manager decides, yeah, he's worth 25 grand a week, pay him the 25 grand a week. And he goes to the chairman and says, yep, pay him 25 grand a week. And the chairman goes, are you sure? Yep, right. It doesn't work like that at Celtic. Brendan Rodgers can turn around and say, I've spoke to Greg, I want him to stay here. And then he goes, and that's up to, hopefully the board and his agent can sort something out. It's out of Brendan's hands. So Brendan's either the manager or he's just really just a coach. And I think that the reality is he's just a coach at Celtic. Anyway, just to close that down. Why did Brendan come back if he hates Lawwell? Glad he did, but it's a mystery. The fact that he never spoke to Lawwell when he came back. He spoke to Dermot. He spoke to Dermot on the phone, and then he went and had a meeting. He had several conversations with Dermot Desmond, and then he had the meeting with Callum McGregor in Palma, Mallorca, and it was only then that he agreed to come back to Celtic after speaking to Callum McGregor. So yeah, the owner needs to step out and sort it out. The owner needs to get. We all know what who the issue is, and the fact that Lawwell supposedly went retire from football and then come back in. No chance Miller has come and said Chilpel. No chance Miller has come in. Has Chilpel heard something? Forget Taylor, get him gone. So we're not getting Lennon Miller. Brendan came back for the money. Yeah, he did come back for the money. Did Lawwell not come back after Brendan? Yes, he did. Yes, he did. Lawwell came back after Brendan was already here. Notice that about Nichols and Lawwell. You thought we were losing 5-0. Yeah, Irishman at Port. I'm glad somebody else noticed it. Because, we were winning and you couldn't have got a smile off him if you tried. Which is a worry to me. It's a worry. It is a worry. Love it says, sorry Baz, not seen anything exciting with Rodgers signings. Desmond drinks near Sunningdale Golf Course, so they'll go down and have a word with them. Danny Cassie says he's going to say that Brendan's going to run amok with teams in the SPFL, plus win the cups. Brendan's already said that he's 150% going to be here next season. There's no use even contemplating life without Brendan Rodgers next season. For me, it comes down to the fact that John Shirley Baz used to love comments coming. Now you just took over him. John, there's loads of comments coming through. If I stop to read every single comment, I'm not going to get anything else done, and folk are then just going to tune out because I'm just sitting talking to people online. Do you know what I mean? But yes, I've just seen your comment. Lawwell and Ange were at the youth game at Ibrox together, if my memory serves me right. Yeah, that was a long time ago, and that was just for show. That was just for show more than anything, I would say. Dermot Desmond deserves no criticism. Nobody's criticising Dermot Desmond, I don't think so. Not that I've seen. At Scotland, we don't need to pray. Ouija's put an interesting comment. Brendan Rodgers is busy wanting to be the player's pal. Big Ange kept it purely professional. Ouija, you've got to remember that Matt O'Reilly wanted away that summer. If Ange Postecoglou didn't leave, Matt O'Reilly was leaving. It's as simple as that. Matt O'Reilly, we would have lost Matt O'Reilly and Jota. If Ange Postecoglou had stayed at Celtic, not only would we have lost Jota that summer, we would have lost Matt O'Reilly, and there's every chance that we would have lost what's his name, the other Aussie that retired as well. So yeah, there's a lot of the players weren't too keen on Ange. I mean, he got the job done, but he's in the past anyway. He's in the past. I watched the game 12:30 straight after Chapel this weekend. No, you're talking about the 17th. We should build for domestic dominance, or should we build for domestic dominance or European success? After 20 years of building, I think if you build for European success, that brings you domestic dominance. But the way that Celtic have done it over the last 20 years is we've built for domestic. That's a good question, actually, because over the last 20 years we can all agree that we've built to just be dominant in Scottish football. And I think that Brendan Rodgers is now trying to turn that around and build to try and get a little bit of success in Europe. And if you're successful in Europe, you're playing at a higher level. You've got better quality players and you're playing against a better competition of player, which the flip side of that should make you better in the league. So having had 25 years of dominance in Scottish football by talking about Peter Lawwell used to say it at the AGM every year. Our aim is to be the most successful club in Scotland and to dominate Scottish football. That's the target. Is to dominate Scottish football. But if we're now if we've got a manager who now says, look, this is what I can do with just a little bit of money, we can get to this stage of the Champions League. We've proven that we can get to the playoffs. Next season, give me a little bit more money, get me a couple of real good players, and let's see if we can take it to the next level. Let's see if we can get to the last 16 proper, and then maybe the last 8. And then it's anybody's luck. It's not down to just who has the biggest financial clout at that stage. If you look back at Porto in 2004, their team at that point weren't really superstars, but they went on to be superstars. But it was a team that won the Champions League that were unfancied. I would say it can't be done. You just need the right type of manager. But you always mention mine. That's why I love the pod. Got a bit of banter, says John. I'm dead without this pod. It keeps me alive. Keeps me a living buzz, honestly. Oh man. Jesus, getting some John Shirley love tonight. Pressure will be on next year with the Zombies getting better. If Rodgers walks, he's not Celtic. He's not going to walk this year. Let's just nail that one on the head. Brendan Rodgers will be here next season. He said it, 150%. He will be here next season. He will be here next season. The season after that is the one that we need to worry about. And that's why this transfer window, the up-and-coming transfer window, is so important. Because the board, if they think that Brendan Rodgers is not going to be here in a year's time, why would they let him go out and spend 20 million, 25 million on players that the next manager may not fancy? But then again, the way that they work at Celtic, is we all know that the manager doesn't get the last voice on the players that comes in. KT's clearly going to be number one left back, but I want Greg to stay. If he's offered the Spurs job, he's off skate. He's never getting the Spurs job. Never getting offered the Spurs job, and he will not leave this summer. Hitati and Lawwell love it in. That was the only one I'm going to do. how much money did we lose not getting ready for the Champions League qualifiers? Over the years, I mean, Celtic could have amassed a lot more money if Lawwell and co would spend the money at the right time of the year. Waiting until we qualify for the Champions League was always a silly mistake by Celtic. Now, Celtic will say, look, once you qualify for the Champions League, we know that we can pay players better wages to get a better standard of player in. But if you don't go out and get that player first of all, you're then going into the Champions League qualifier with one hand tied behind your back. And that is the reality. That's a sad reality. A lot of the managers have went in for years now with one hand tied behind their back trying to get into Champions League and just not being able to qualify. But we've never blamed it on the board, do we? We always blame it on the manager. Put Taylor in Hatate's position. After our last run in Europe, we should be pushing to go further and remain in Champions League regulars. We don't do this summer. I don't see it happening. Just settling for domestic dominance. I think that if we don't go into this, if we don't get our business done way before August, so that any player that is coming into Celtic is settled into the team and is really focused, because this Champions League qualifier this year is one of the most important ones that we've had. Because if we don't get into the Champions League this year, and saying the off chance that other mob were to get into it, I don't know if there is the two qualifiers, aren't there? It's only 2 seasons, two seasons maximum of them getting Champions League money and us not, and then the tables are completely turned. If the Messiah leaves, then Wash, Level, Lawwell and Desmond, the Nugget, will have to bring the mountain. Lennon looks a far better buy than Engels for me, and cheaper. Says love it. Well, Chilpill says that we're not getting Lennon Miller. Come on, Chilpill, tell us what you've heard. Irishman in Porto says that Lawwell wants his beloved Old Firm. Yes, he does. The quote was been one in the 5 million loss when they went bust. Yeah. That's all Lawwell wants, isn't it? It was every year when he stood up, it was always a fucking circus act. Laughing at them. Let's just laugh at them. It deflects from what's really going on with the finances of the club. Deflects from the important issues on how to turn the club and make us into a force that's in there in European terms on an ongoing basis. Just put out a couple of fucking comments laughing at fucking Rangers and the state that they're in. It gets the crowd going, hey, fucking Lawwell's brilliant. Hey, fucking Lawwell's taking the piss out of Rangers. In reality, it's like, well, fucking why didn't you go and get McGinn when we wanted McGinn? You know, there's all these things. You could go over the years, but anyway, the people calling Greg Taylor a Hun need to take a good look at themselves. He plays his heart out for us, and he's been belting out "You'll Never Walk Alone" after the Scottish Cup victory, and he also got his kid dolled up in a wee Celtic strip. The only reason, I mean, I know that I was having a dig at Greg Taylor back in December, but it was only because he hadn't signed the contract, and I don't see why he should be given the privilege of walking away from Celtic from absolutely nothing, when other players in the past coming at the same point of their contract, who is a valued member of the squad and had a sellable asset value. That's what it comes down to. The fact that Celtic did value Greg Taylor at 7.5-8 million at one point, and they're letting him go. He could walk out the door for absolutely nothing. I think the maximum that Turnbull was valued at Celtic was 6 million, but we still managed to get 3 million for him with only 6 months of his contract remaining. So there's definitely a power. I'm going to come out and say it. I think there's a power struggle going on at Celtic Park again. And I'll get slated for saying it. I know I will. But I think there's definitely a power struggle between Brendan Rodgers and Nicholson, because I think that Nicholson's just a puppet for Lowell, and I'll come out and say that. I don't care what other people say. It's all about having your own view, but I think that there is definitely, when we sit back and we analyse the past few transfer windows, when we analyse what Brendan Rodgers says on occasions about players' contracts, about bringing in new players, about timelines, and the fact that he always puts it back to Nicholson and Chris Mackay. Not always fucking happy within the board and the manager, to say the least, as far as I'm concerned. And other people will say, you're talking shite, mate, you're talking shite. But it is all about opinions, and that's why it's called the One Celtic Fans View. Calmark is from a Hun family, he gets no criticism. Oh dear. Hi guys, I've heard when Brendan Rodgers goes, Jose Mourinho is taking the Celtic job. George Haggerty. Jesus. There is absolutely... Could you imagine him as Celtic manager? Oh, Jesus Christ. The only good thing is he'd probably smash a Hun. Whoever the Hun manager was at a derby game, he'd go over and fucking lamp one on him. Getting bored listening to you talk about the board. Cheerio then. You don't have to stay. That's the viewer's choice. You can turn off at any time. Anyway, that is me done and dusted for the night. We're going to get the end of the poll. The poll was asking, do you think there's a lack of pressure, or the size of the gap is hurting the way that Celtic play? 73%, 74% have said yes, and 26% have said no. And we end that poll with 129 votes. Will it go to the 30? No. There we go. 129 votes. Anyway, on that note, respect your opinion for me about Hatate as a class act when in top form. Sorry, Colin says, I love it. Having a look at it. Josie's coming to Celtic. No, he's not. Maxi boy, I knew you were only kidding. Jose the has-been. Jose the has-been. Oh, Jesus. Jose the has-been. There's no way that Mourinho's coming to Celtic. That's a conversation. That's a conversation for... It's a season away yet. We're 12 months away for that kind of conversation. And I do believe that it's a conversation that will happen in 12 months' time, because I'm still not convinced that Brendan Rodgers will sign a new contract this summer with Celtic. Anyway, on that note, have an absolutely fantastic evening, Celtic fans, wherever you are, all around the world.